So on this piece of paper here, I've got written down all of the movies that disappointed me over time. I just haven't got them organized. I've also got a list of actors that make me want to watch a movie and actors that make me want to not watch a movie if I see they're in that movie. So I'm watching trailers. I'm like, hey, this movie looks pretty good. And then I see starring, and I go, okay, yes, or no, I'd rather put my eyes out. Um, so these now best bad movies, I went by a couple things. Either they're really cheap B movies, or they're movies that got really bad reviews and just everybody hated them, but for some reason I like them. So let's go ahead and get this going. And number 10, and again, I have to be in the right mood for this, because it's really really stupid. Um, Jaws: The Revenge. I think what I like about Jaws: The Revenge is it's shot so that they mean it. This was supposed to be a serious movie. This was supposed to be a movie that brought the franchise back because Jaws 3D was really kind of silly, and it didn't. Jaws: The Revenge killed it. There was a franchise to be had. This movie killed it, and rightfully so. I'm not arguing that it's a good movie. I'm arguing that for me, Jaws: The Revenge is one of the ones that's so horrible that at some point I'm buying it and I'm good with it, and yeah, I'm pretty much laughing at whatever's happening on the screen. And I think, and this is a point that almost anybody who's seen the movie has thought is, she's on a plane going to Bermuda, Bahamas, wherever it is. The shark's there when they get there, meaning it's tracked her across ocean water. And for that reason alone, I recommend watching it if you haven't seen it at least once because it's really really funny. Number 9, this is a movie I genuinely like, and I understand why it was a flop. I understand people didn't like it. I get it, but when I watched it, I was surprised. John Carter. I actually really liked John Carter. I thought the special effects were on point. I thought it was really well thought out. The acting's kind of wooden. I'll agree. The acting's kind of wooden, and it's a silly concept. But I thought it was a fun movie, and I watched it from start to finish. When I put it on, kind of like, well, let's see how long I last through this one. And at the end, I was like, you know what? That's not that bad. Yes, there are things I would change if I directed it myself. There are things that I would think that even the guy who wrote the original story would look at on the screen and go, "Oh, that's not right." But really, genuine. It was a genuine attempt to start a new franchise, I think, and it just didn't work. But it was a good, relatively good movie, and I enjoyed it for what it was. Let's see if I can get that to stop. There we go. Perfect. All right, number 8. This is where people are going to be like, "Yeah, I'm done." All right, I'm gonna turn this video off now because you're crazy. Wild Wild West came out with this huge budget, and that was a mistake. There's a lot of steampunk in it. Will Smith is in it. Selma Hayek, Calvin Klein. It's worth watching once. The thing for me, and again, this is these movies come out and people know the budget, so they just savage it. And it's not like Lone Ranger where it's deserved. The Lone Ranger is an abomination to humanity and the entire planet. It threatens our very ecosystem. But Wild Wild West was a fun little. It probably should have cost a lot less money. The giant mechanical spider at the end of it, you probably could have dialed that back a bunch, saved a bunch of money, and just made it just this small, campy little comedy instead of trying to go over the top. I think Hollywood does that a lot, where they'll have a simple idea that might work, and they decide to throw a couple $100 million at it, which means now instead of it just being a campy idea that might work, now it has to work, and now it has to make. Remember, you look at the budget, and then your marketing budget is equal to the budget. So it's not just this movie cost 200 million. It's when you factor in your advertising and marketing and everything else. Now it's a $400 million movie. You have to make $400 million back before you start seeing any money. That's why I don't understand why they don't just make more low budget movies, because you're going to make your money back. It's just ridiculous. They got to charge you $30 a ticket, and just ridiculous. Number 7, and we're going back to the 80s because what would any movie list I have be without going back to the 80s? I know Jaws: The Revenge was at the end of the 80s. Deadly Friend. So Wes Craven, coming out of Nightmare on Elm Street, decided that he liked the house he filmed in for Nightmare on Elm Street. Deadly Friend is a Wes Craven movie as well. It's kind of silly. Boy meets girl. Girl gets beat up by her dad. Dad accidentally kills her. Boy puts his robot's brain into girl, and she's Frankenstein's monster for the rest of the movie. And she has memories of to life as a girl, and she has memories of being this boy's robot, and she goes around getting revenge on people who might have just upset this girl during her life. There's an unforgettable scene where the actress who played Mama and Throw Mama from the Train gets her head exploded with a basketball, and to this day, it's one of the greatest scenes ever in a horror movie, and it's silly, but it's done so well, and it's I think if this movie hadn't taken itself so seriously, and I also think the ending of the movie is really depressing. So if you're looking for a good happy ending, this isn't it. I also read the book that this movie was based upon, and the book is fantastic. The book is simply amazing, and it's too bad because if Deadly Friend had been a scene for scene, at least on some level, a scene for scene remake of what's in the book, you'd have a fantastic movie there. The girl was younger, the boy was younger, and it was a more tragic story. And there was a lot more character development than there is in this thing. This thing doesn't really have character development. So that's the one drawback of Deadly Friend. But it's an 80s horror movie, so you're not going to get character development anyways. That really doesn't happen. Number 6. And again, this is one that really got savaged when it was brought out in the theater, and that's Sucker Punch. And it was rightfully savaged in the theater. Again, you give somebody way too much money for an idea that's just kind of fun and depressing at the same time. So it's the idea of again this girl who gets taken into a mental institution, and then she escapes into a dream world, which is then inside of another dream world, and then by the from there until the end of the movie, you're not quite sure what's real and what isn't. This movie has beautiful women, beautiful visuals. The visuals are top notch. The storyline is incomprehensible for the most part. Um, and the dancing, you never see her dance. So this whole idea is that she hypnotizes men when she dances, but you never see Emily Browning dance in the entire movie. That's the biggest drawback for me. And then I made the mistake of watching the movie with director's commentary on, which is basically the whole. It's an hour and a half of this is why I'm awesome. This is why this scene's awesome. This makes me awesome too. This also makes me awesome. And I pretty quickly realized that even though this movie had failed at the theater, the director thinks that it's our fault that it failed, not that the movie wasn't necessarily fantastic. He still thinks it's an amazing movie, and you can't tell him that he's wrong because clearly he's right. So don't watch the director's commentary because he'll tell you why he's right and you're wrong. Number 5. I recommend the MST3K version of this one. But I genuinely, even without MST3K, it is so campy and weird and hilarious. The Final Sacrifice is a Canadian movie made in Alberta that's really, 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 really bad. It is so hysterically bad that, yes, it makes that turn and becomes good again. That you're entertained the whole way through. It is my favorite Mystery Science Theater 3000 episode. Up there with Manos Hands of Fate, but it is one of my all-time favorite episodes of Mystery Science Theater. And it is available in its entirety on YouTube. So go ahead and look it up. Final Sacrifice. Apologies, I've got a cold, but what a great movie. What a great movie. And I think I've watched that episode of MST3K at least 3 or 4 times because it is just amazing. So, yeah, Final Sacrifice. Can't recommend it enough. Number 4. This is where I really look like I've lost my mind. And I'm going to say this. When I watched Congo, I watched Anaconda the same day because I knew they were both supposed to be bad. And Anaconda's not on this list, but if you haven't seen it, the snake is so fake. Holy crow, the snake is so unbelievably fake that even people who are scared of snakes, I can't see them being scared of Anaconda because clearly it's CGI and it's not real. Congo came out shortly after Jurassic Park, and because of the way the trailers were, it kind of made it look like they were going for that same mood. It made it look like they were going for that same epic journey and this idea that now it was with gorillas and it was going to be terrifying. And what do you get? You get Tim Curry being the campiest of camp ever. You get all of these actors not mailing it in, overacting, and just cranking up the overacting all the way through. you get the most hilariously bad looking gorilla suits in the history of movies. And the talking gorilla, every line from the talking gorilla is gold. I I remember the first time that I watched it. I sat with a piece of paper and a pen. No, it was because I watched it all the way through and I was laughing at it. So I rewound the VHS because it was VHS tape at the time, and I watched it from the start, writing down on a piece of paper every time a line came up that I thought was hilarious. Every time something happened that I thought was hilarious, I was writing down the timestamps of all of it, and just I had that paper. I kept that for years as an example of how Congo was amazing. And I could recommend that now. If you've never seen Congo, get a piece of paper, sit down, and write down every line that's stupid, every line that's comically bad when it's not supposed to be, and you're going to run out of paper pretty quick. It is not. I don't know. I don't know when they directed it if they meant for it to be that funny or not. I don't know what they meant for it to be. So if there's any confusion left, yeah, these are movies that you're gonna want. If you like having a couple drinks before you watch movies, these are all perfect for that. Because they're light on storyline. Number three, and I hadn't seen this actually until a couple years ago, and I stumbled upon it for free on YouTube, and I'm like, I'm just gonna see how it goes. This is the most disjointed movie ever, but because I had seen The Lost Skeleton of Cadavra, I knew I had to see Plan 9 from Outer Space because I knew a lot of what happens in Lost Skeleton of Cadavra is lovingly in tribute to that movie. I can talk all day about how horrible Plan 9 from Outer Space is. Until you've witnessed it, you don't know. You don't have a clue. Ed Wood filmed everything I'm pretty sure it was all in the same studio, and then um, yeah, it's just so none of it makes sense. You got vampires and aliens and Bride of Frankenstein and really bad looking tombstones. And the highlight for me is the cop who gestures and points at everybody with his gun. Who just, what do you think? And it's like, can you not point your gun at his face while you're talking to him? And also how the movie goes light dark light dark. There's no continuity at all. It doesn't you don't have to look for a storyline because there really isn't one. Um, the special effects, if you want to call them that, are so bad. But to understand why Ed Wood was made as a movie, to understand why Tim Burton felt it was important to make a movie about this director, you have to see Plan 9 from Outer Space. Because that movie is just, oh, and there's zombies, like it's just great. I can't recommend it enough. It's fantastic. Number 2. And this one was close to number 1. And I had thought, The Room's going to end up being number 1 because The Room is well, it's The Room, right? It's Tommy Wiseau, the disaster artist, is made about this movie. It's it's just so amazingly bad, and Tommy Wiseau put millions of dollars into this movie from some fund that, depending on who you ask, either it's some mysterious thing nobody knows, or people are like, oh yeah, it came from. Um, Tommy Wiseau is really uniquely capable of creating a bad movie and thinking it's really excellent. And for that reason, him and Ed Wood belong next to each other on this countdown. Because Ed Wood kind of did the same thing. And without Ed Wood, I don't think we have Mars Attacks. Without Ed Wood, we wouldn't have had the movie based on his name, where Johnny Depp insanely well plays Ed Wood. Um, it's The Room is so inept, and yet Tommy was always so convinced this was going to be such a great movie that it has to be at this spot on the countdown. And I've watched every video that I can find online that puts all of the bad moments in The Room all into one big cornucopia of awesomeness. And I never get sick of "You're Tearing Me Apart, Lisa." And I love Lisa so much. And how, hey, Mark, how's your sex life? All of the jokes that weren't meant to be jokes. Or Danny telling this horrible story, and then Tommy laughs, what a great story, Danny. Like, it's not, though. It's this terrifying story and yet he laughs it off, and that's what stayed in the movie. So what could possibly be more watchable as a bad movie than The Room? Um, a movie I've watched a few times. A movie that is so absolutely inept. That as a remake, it doesn't work. As a movie, it barely works. And the only reason that I'm recommending it is because Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage overacts so well in Wicker Man that it overcomes the fact that it's an inept script, that it doesn't make sense. How to get burned, how to get burned, how to get burned. Punch, kick, punch, punch. Like the moments in this movie that are perfect. And it's funny because the first time I watched it, I had heard it was bad. I knew it was really, really bad. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for just how bad. And I mean, for me to laugh at a scene where a little girl gets run over by a truck, there has to be something wrong with the movie for me to find that really hysterical. And I did. And then there's a moment where he's looking out the window on the boat. You guys all know what I'm going to, right? If you've seen the movie. And there's a little girl out on the deck of the boat. It's the same little girl, and I'm like, please get hit by a truck. Please get hit by a truck, and she did. And just this vision he had of this, and it was so ridiculous, and I was in tears watching it. Um, Bad movies can be better than good movies if you're okay with something you can talk over and you're not missing anything. You can be okay with the fact that there's plot holes up the wazoo. And really, the funny thing is, the movies that are truly bad are five and up. The movies that I separated from six and down are ones that are actually good movies on some level. Five and up, they're just hysterically bad. Hysterically bad. And if you haven't seen any of these five movies, why haven't you seen them? And if it's, well, everybody told me Congo sucks. Yeah, watch it. It's fantastic. It's fantastic because it's so bad. Ugly woman, ugly Amy, ugly woman. It's like, oh wow, just the ape, just the ape. Just picturing this poor sap that's stuck in the ape suit in Congo, and going, this is, I don't have any dialogue. Who's the woman that's gonna be doing? I don't. I this is this. How do I portray anything with this? Can I cry while I'm in the suit? And they're like, yeah, do whatever you're gonna do. We can't see you. So yeah, the top five again. If you haven't seen them, they are a must watch. Um, the bottom five, if you don't feel like watching them, fine. But yeah, the top five are absolutely just delicious, wonderful horribleness. So there you go. Let me know your picks in the comment section below because we all love a bad movie once in a while. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. And again, to be on this list, you can't have been on my 200 favorite movies list, and none of these would get on that list. I could not justify putting Wicker Man in my 200 favorite movies because I laugh at it. I don't enjoy it as much as I'm just kind of laughing at it and how to get burned, how to get burned, how to get burned. All right. Thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.